We're live. We're good.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting on August 24th, 2020. We've had a bit of a break from regular council meetings for the last few weeks, so welcome back. Tonight's meeting will be held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act, which provides for electronic participation where an emergency has been declared to exist in all or in part of the municipality under Section 4 or Section 7.01 of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. In-person attendance at this regular meeting will not be permitted. Members of the public may observe the proceedings by accessing the live webcast on the Town of Shelburne YouTube page, and correspondence related to the agenda business may be submitted via email to the clerk at jwilloughby@shelburne.ca. So with that, I would ask that we all stand for the playing of the national anthem. Thank you. And we would also like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest from any member of council this evening? Councillor Wagner.
Yes, I do for item number 6.1.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, so I'd look for a motion to adopt the Committee of Adjustment and council meetings held July 7th, 13th, 15th, and 27th, 2020. Mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Wagner. Any discussion on any of those sets of minutes? Okay, all in favor? It's carried. All right, public question period. Did we receive any questions, Jennifer?
We did not, sir, not for this evening.
Okay, thank you. And no presentations for this evening, so that takes us to council inquiries. I have one, but are there any other members who have any inquiries? Councillor Wagner.
Thank you.
Seems to be frozen.
Issues. So I guess I'm just asking town staff if you think it might be beneficial to have a report to council that might include such information as, you know, data recorded from the speed deterrent signs, recommendations on problem areas that could be classified as community safety zones. I mean, we've already kind of spoke about sort of reducing speeding. We know that enforcement is the best route. However, we put into the report just to sort of educate community a little bit better, as well as ourselves when we get asked what can be done or why aren't we doing this. Just throwing it out there if you think that a report could be beneficial.
I'm not sure if it's on my end or if it was on Councillor Wagner's end, but I sort of missed the initial part of what you were saying. I think your screen froze. Did anybody else miss that? Yeah, okay. Could you just recap what you said at the start?
No problem. So does everyone have me now?
Seem
Can
to.
you all hear me, hopefully?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so basically it's just asking for a report regarding concerns over speeding and traffic within our town. If it could be beneficial to the community to know these things, such as data recorded from the speed deterrent signs and recommendations on trouble areas for the to be community safety zones.
Denise?
Through you, Mayor Mills, yes, we certainly are happy to provide a report in follow-up to your previous questions regarding speed bumps and traffic mitigation. I think that would be very beneficial and a key to public education.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I just had a quick one. As many of you likely saw, local media has picked up a story that a company has applied through the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario for a license to sell retail cannabis within town. That's different, obviously, from our local licensing regime. So I was just wondering if Jennifer and or Steve Weaver could provide sort of any general commentary on how that process would work, assuming they're successful at the AGCO stage.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can start, and maybe Jennifer can add if she has additional comments. So we have received a number of inquiries since the retailing of cannabis was introduced by the province. And you'll recall the initial step with the province was the municipalities were given the option of either opting in, and it was a one-time choice to allow cannabis retail in future within the municipality, or to opt out. And there were funding connections with that, with the province. The council did opt in. I think that was back in 2019. And we then reviewed, as part of that process, the zoning implications of where those types of uses would be permitted. And under the zoning bylaw, the retail store definition is broad enough that it does capture retailing of substances and basically the products that would be sold in a cannabis retail store, similar to selling of tobacco and other products, is all covered under that general definition. So anywhere that a retail store is permitted in the zoning bylaw would be permitted from a zoning perspective, again, provided they obtain their proper licensing with the AGCO. And the other restriction on that is there is a 150 meter setback required as part of the provincial requirements from all schools, elementary schools, and I believe the secondary school as well. So we have mapped out where those 150 meter setback zones are. Generally, they don't affect most of the locations where retail stores are permitted by the zoning bylaw, which is the C1, C2, C3, and C4, all the commercial zones in the zoning bylaw. So yeah, in summary, the permitted locations would be in a commercial zone, and we've identified where those are in town.
Okay, thanks. And Jennifer, from a licensing regime point of view, how would that play out?
So as with all businesses in town, they are required to apply for a business license application. They would, of course, have to provide the town with all of their AGCO permissions and licensings through AGCO before they obtain their business license through the town. They're also required to submit an overall general layout of the store for approval through the town planner and myself prior to receiving a business license for operations.
Okay. And to date, we haven't received any such applications?
No, not yet. Like Steve had said, we've received many inquiries, but no official applications have been submitted.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any inquiries? Last call before we move on. Deputy Mayor, do you have your hand up there? Okay.
Yeah, I do. Thanks. Not necessarily inquiry. I just wanted to take the opportunity. I know many of you might have seen that myself and Wade had received the chair award from Headwaters with respect to our response, community response to COVID-19. And I just wanted to say that that award was really collected on the behalf of the entire group, council and staff, for the work that all of us have done. So albeit that Wade and I accepted the award, it's really a reflection of the work that all of you guys have done, and certainly the community as well. So I just wanted to thank all you guys for your commitment, your ongoing commitment to the community. So thanks.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so on to reports. The first report is from our Director of Development and Operations regarding the RFP results for our 2020 asphalt resurfacing. Councillor Wagner, this is the item that Councillor Wagner has declared a pecuniary interest with respect to. So she will, I guess, temporarily be offline, and then we'll welcome her back when the discussion has taken place. So Jim, over to you.
Through your worship, this report is for our 2020 RFP results for asphalt resurfacing. The town's roads needs study was updated early this year and reprioritized some roads that have been repaired in the last 5 years, and some of them that have further deteriorated since the last study was done in 2015. The RFP was distributed to 12 contractors listed in Appendix 1 on July 10th and closed on July 30th this year. 3 submissions were received, one from Acon Group, one from Coco Paving, and one from the Murray Group. All 3 of these companies have worked for the town in the past and do have good reputations in the industry. The review of the bids was completed by SBA with the recommendation that Coco Paving, being the lowest quoted bid, be accepted as our contractor for 2020. The RFP included a list of streets in our roads needs study, and we were going to use our OCIF funding for these projects this year. Staff did include a number of projects in the RFP just to make sure that we covered the full amount of our OCIF funding. Now, the Coco Group's quote did come in at $436,021.82, HST inclusive. So our funding amount that we do have available to us is $260,842. So we would be looking at scaling some of the projects back. It's suggested that Second Avenue is in better shape than some of the streets that are on the list. So it'd be pulled off the list for this year, as well as Industrial Road around by the sewage treatment plant, just as it needs further examination of the base material there. It's seen some quick deterioration this year. So there is some concern that we may have to go a little bit over and above resurfacing and look at some of the base there as well. So policy implications, we just have to stick with our municipal procurement policy. And for consultations, SBA, our contract engineering firm, Lisa Johnson and Dave Dashian.
Okay. All right. So the items that are left on the list then is Simon Court, Mill Street, William Street, Steele Street, and in part of Maine.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Just in addition to that, we finally did get our agreement for Connecting Link funding. So it wasn't included with this RFP, it was separated out. So we do have some timelines that we're checking into since we've just received that agreement. see how much of a squeeze we have to get it in. We were looking at tendering that this year to be completed next year, along with some of the curbing along Main Street. But we'll have to do a double check with the ministry just to make sure that the funding dates that are listed in the agreement are the actual ones.
Okay. Any questions for Jim? Okay, so we have a motion, be it resolved, the council receives report DO 2020-02 regarding asphalt resurfacing RFP results as presented and circulated, and that Coco Construction Materials Limited be awarded the 2020 contract for hot mix asphalt resurfacing of municipal roads with an upset limit of $260,842 inclusive of HST. Mover and seconder for that, moved by Councillor Buffett, seconded by Councillor Fegan. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we can let Councillor Wagner back in now, however we do that. There she is. Can you hear us? Good, okay, excellent. Worked like it was supposed to. So item number 2 is a request from the Cricket user group for the purchase of a jute cricket mat. Denise, do you want to speak to that one? Maybe.
Sure. Through you, Mayor Mills. Jim has been managing it more so than me, but I'm certainly happy to speak to it. There's been a number of costs we've been asked to consider with respect to the interim use by the Cricket group. There's a number of members of the community that are currently playing at KTH. We as staff had provided you with a report last year in August of 2019, and they had the opportunity to get organized this year in August and are playing on a number of weekends. The costs that they're asking for, they're certainly not significant, but they're certainly not budgeted. And we're trying to look at the best utilization going forward. The advantage this year is that with COVID-19, not that that's an advantage, I shouldn't say that, but certainly a number of the user groups of that particular park had suspended their use this year. So we don't have any shared use. And as staff, we had outlined that in the long term, we need to review location because grass cutting in different lengths and heights when there's other users, particularly baseball, could create trip hazards and risk issues. And we are quite aware of trips and falls that we have seen in terms of liability in other areas where there's a difference in heights and grading. So the recommendation is to defer the requests for the 2021 budget and incorporate any capital needs associated with Cricket into that process. That's what we've undertaken at this time. Subsequent to that, we also have some estimates from the group on what more, I guess, I don't know if it's permanent or comprehensive needs for their sport would be in the range of about, I think, 12 to 15,000. We certainly recognize as well that the infrastructure that supports other field users in our community, such as baseball, has significant costs as well. So it's certainly not a question of equity and investment. It's just a timing issue, and why we've suggested that any new and additional costs be deferred or looked at in the 2021 budget and planned. I should note too that for long-term use of KTH Park, we should engage and consult with the other stakeholders just to make sure that a displacement of those groups, and which is possibly accommodated, can be more a consultative process.
Okay. I'll admit that I know very little about the game of cricket, and I hope to learn a bit more this weekend. But Denise, I understand your dad was a cricket player.
He was more of a cricket watcher. I shouldn't say that publicly. My dad, sorry, Dad. But he's British, and my mom is South African, so I think that says a lot.
Okay, and the deputy mayor is a burgeoning cricket star. So maybe between the two of you or anybody else who knows more about the game, what are these jute mats used for? So we did a quick cricket
review when we did the report last year, the surfacing that cricket plays on, from my understanding, it's really critical for the playability, that the ball is similar to, I would say, a lawn bowling green, if that's a good analogy. It's a very, very short surface that allows the ball to be hit properly as opposed to in deep grass. We did provide you with what a proper cricket facility would cost, and there's certainly significant ranges between competition. I think one was up to 700,000, and those that are more recreational in the range of 50,000 to 100 or less. What we're doing right now is simply a stopgap measure. It's certainly by no means the best opportunity in terms of quality of turf, but it was literally an interim stopgap measure. That's why we think it's critically important to evaluate this. Ideally, it would be part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that would be in the 2021 budget, which we will be recommending should be folded as a combo Fiddle Park Master Plan with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And if cricket is emerging, we certainly need to find a dedicated location for this group and others to play at.
Okay.
But I don't think that, to address your question, I don't think, for example, playing in long grass does the game the justice it needs, and it probably inhibits the ability to play properly.
Okay.
And Steve, I think you played the one day. I'm sure you.
Did it inhibit your ability to play the game?
Not as a burgeoning cricket player, no. But as a professional, it may be a different story. I do want to add that I have had the opportunity to speak to obviously the organizers of the event, and as Denise pointed out, there are some costs that they're seeking to have the town accommodate to allow this match that they have coming up this weekend to be as successful as possible. I did speak to them to say that, hey, listen, much of this is somewhat short notice. The staff is doing the best that they can to try to accommodate. And certainly we will have an opportunity as council to examine what the ongoing cost of accommodating the sport will be moving forward. So I certainly believe that they're understanding to that. Certainly they want the pitch to be, or the field, however they call it in cricket, to be as playable as possible. But I think they also recognize that there are limitations. And as much as they're asking, certainly I should say staff has been very accommodating in doing their best to respond. Jennifer, Denise, and others. And so I'm sure that they appreciate that. But I think, as Denise pointed out, I think it's an opportunity for us to see the sport that is growing, just based on the feedback online. It's clear that that's the case, and see what we could do to accommodate this sport moving forward.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I think that's the key. I mean, this is, very exciting news for town, but, rather than throw money at it on a piecemeal basis this year that, may ultimately turn into throwaway money if we do something more permanent later, is not really all that well advised. So I think staff is right that if we sort of take our time and incorporate this as part of our budget discussions and do it properly and give it the justice that it deserves, I think, in the long run, that's a better approach. Any other comments or thoughts on this? Okay. So we have a motion.
Wait, just before you go, I apologize. They posted this on Facebook, as we talked about the mayor attending and myself going to be present as well. They are holding this, I think, on the 29th, right, Wade, on Saturday. The game actually starts at 1 p.m. They're playing against a team in Mississauga, from what I understand. And certainly they're going to allow, I think, starting at 12, an opportunity for council members, obviously myself and the mayor and staff, if they so choose to come, to have an opportunity to address the team in the audience there. So if anybody's interested in doing that, there's an opportunity to show up at 12, but the game formally starts at 1. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So the motion included in the agenda reads, be it resolved, the council receives the request for the purchase of a jute cricket mat for information, and that the request be further considered during the 2021 budget discussions. Mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Fegan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. All in favor? It's carried. Excellent. Okay, next up is consideration of a Community Excellence Award. That nomination was made by Councillor Fegan, I do believe. Do you want to speak to that briefly at all, Councillor Fegan?
It was brought to my attention that Officer Courtney acted rather swiftly and efficiently on a call that was received, I believe it was back in June. Sorry, it's slipped my mind at this point when it was. However, it was certainly a justification of why we have our officers now operating with the Narcan kits as far as their day-to-day utilities. And this was certainly an incident where he responded to a non-responsive individual, and by applying this this kit, was able to save the individual's life. His fast thinking and his fast response, I certainly believe, warrants some recognition. And since I know of no other recognition that we have available to us at this point, to me, this seems like certainly a valuable option, and certainly a valuable opportunity for us to recognize his actions.
Great. Okay, so we have a motion the council receive the Community Excellence Award nomination, and further that the recipient be invited to a future council meeting to receive their award. So Councillor Fegan, have you move that? Is there a seconder? Councillor Hall, all in favor? Carried. Excellent. All right, so we have a couple of bylaws. So the first one is a bylaw to appoint fire chief for the Shelburne and District Fire Department. Councillor Bernardo is chair of the fire board. Do you want to give us a brief update as to how we arrived where we're at?
Yeah, our former fire chief resigned back in June. We posted out for the availability of a fire chief position. We had 39 applicants, whittled it down through a scoring process to 10, and then further whittled it down to 3. We decided to look at those only over the 90 percentile. And from that, we interviewed 3. Of the 3, the top person who had scored well over 90% was the one that was chosen by the hiring committee, and was asked then to make a presentation to the board as a whole. After the hiring committee made the recommendation to the board to hire him, the person made that presentation to the board. The board unanimously voted to have him as fire chief, and I'm proud to announce that the gentleman is Ralph Snyder from Agila Toss, former fire chief there, who was not quite ready to was retired, but not quite ready to stay retired. And he'll be starting September 1st for us.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have a motion be it resolved that leave be given for the reading and enacting of bylaw number 35-2020, being a bylaw to appoint a fire chief for the Shelburne and District Fire Department. Councillor Bernardo, you can move that. We have a seconder. Councillor Hall, is our other fire board member? It's fitting. Any discussion on that? All in favor? It's carried. All right. That takes us to another appointment bylaw. This is for our municipal law bylaw enforcement officer. Jennifer had given us a bit of a heads up a few weeks ago on this, but I guess we can make it formal now. So Jennifer, do you want to introduce the individual?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We have finally sought after a very experienced applicant. Tammy Abbott started with us today, was her first day, and she comes along with us. She has got 16 years experience, which is great. And I thank council for their patience while we work through the first few months of COVID with unknowns of protocols and policies. We kind of had to put the hiring process on hold temporarily. But thankfully, we have found a successful applicant, and they started with us today.
Okay, great. So the motion reads, be it resolved that leave be given for the reading and enacting of bylaw number 36-2020, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal law enforcement officer for the town of Shelburne. Moved by Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? It's carried. Excellent, good news. Okay, councillor motions. Is there any notices of motion to be tabled this evening? No? Okay. On to correspondence. There were quite a few pieces of correspondence included in the package there. Is there anything that anybody would like to address independently? Oh, Jennifer.
I just wanted to bring to council's attention the information from the BIA, which is item number 4. The treats in the streets and the Santa Claus parade have been canceled.
Okay. I think that's in line with what a lot of other communities are doing. So it's unfortunate, but probably the responsible decision at this point. Okay, if there's nothing that anybody wants, oh, sorry, Carrie.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring to council's attention that we've amended the 2021 budget framework to defer the budget framework report from September 14th to September 28th, as there's a couple of critical items that we're waiting decisions for that would be beneficial if we knew some of the answers to those before we actually present the report to council.
Okay, thank you. All right. Can I get a mover and seconder then to receive the items listed under communications for information? Councillor Hall. Seconder for that, Deputy Mayor Anderson. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, on to closed session. A mover and seconder to move into closed session. Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? It's carried. So Jennifer, how does this work?